and Easter?
Matt, these are easy questions. Draft day.
All right. And I have to say, what is up with the shirt you're wearing today?
Matt, I'm glad you asked. It's my official Kick-Ass Fantasy Football t-shirt I got on our website at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Shameless plug.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, I want to also mention we're going to be at the Fantasy Fest this year, guys. First ever in Atlantic City at the Convention Center, August 18th and 19th. We're going to be printing off some of these awesome Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show t-shirts. They got some great sayings on the back. Mine says, "Got Fantasy." You got your Don't Drink and Draft t-shirts. A lot of great stuff. Check us out on the web, kickassfantasyfootball.com.
And I want to also say at the Fantasy Football Fest, we are right across from the beer table.
Right.
So
come have a beer with us. We'll talk fantasy football, baby.
We are strategically placed.
Yes.
That's right. I'm not sure you want to take our advice necessarily that day after we've had a few, but come by, see us there. And also, as a added bonus from this show going on up, right up until the Fantasy Football Fest, we're going to be giving away free tickets for the entire weekend. So you'll be able to get in both Saturday and Sunday for free just by listening right here to the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. All right, guys, let's get into some training camp reports. Man, look at the Steelers. They are upset about Mike Wallace. He's a no-show at camp. And they have that whole new offense with Todd Haley is installing, and they're saying they will not negotiate a new deal with Wallace until he signs his tender. What do you think, Commish?
Matt, real bad news for Wallace's fantasy value, especially if he continues to hold out. He's got to get in there and learn a whole new offense. And let's face it, you're not getting into real football shape when you miss camp. So it's a big wait and see for me on Wallace.
All right. And another holdout, MJD, has his own fantasy show, apparently doesn't want to go to training camp. He's trying to renegotiate the last 2 years of his deal with $9 million left on it. That's $1 million there, Professor. What do we think about MJD?
Well, they're fining him $30,000 a day, but that's peanuts compared to his value to that franchise. He's in his second contract. Running backs don't get much in their third contract. Those guys are used up by the time they hit 30, so MJD is trying to get paid now. The problem is that team is rebuilding. I think they're always rebuilding in Jacksonville. But
when haven't they?
Yeah.
Well, with that great quarterback, Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah, we'll talk about him later. But new coach, new owner, rebuilding year. They might just hold the line and say this is a lost cause this year anyway. But if this goes more than 2 weeks, you have to start moving MJD down your draft boards, and I've got him real high, so that would be a shame.
I mean, he did lead the NFL with rushing last year. You think he'd get a couple more bucks, but $9 million a year.
I'm having flashbacks to Chris Johnson, isn't that?
Yeah.
That's the worry. That's the downside.
But so you're saying if he signs and he shows up within the next 2 weeks, you're okay. After that, you got to start moving him down?
Well, you got to start factoring him in. In about 2 weeks, people start drafting, so that's when things start getting risky. So that's when you have to start building in that risk that if he misses 2-3 games, he's got to lose his value, and his legs just won't be fresh.
Okay. Well, now we got to get to my team, the big 3-player deal. Louis Murphy, wide receiver for the Raiders, he gets traded to the Panthers, while the Panthers sends an offensive tackle to the Jets, and the Raiders get a conditional 7th-round pick. What is going on there, Commish?
Yeah, Matt. They sent Jeff Utah to the Jets. Unfortunately, he failed his physical, so that's holding up this trade, and it's a shame because it would be a great fit for the Panthers. Another weapon for Cam Newton, other than the big tight end Greg Olsen, and of course you got the veteran Steve Smith there. So I'd love to see this trade go through. I think it'd be great for fantasy.
Well, and I have to ask, how many tight ends does it take to win a championship? Because apparently the Pats are trying to find out. What's going on there, Professor?
Well, the Pats, they were a running team, and they decided to set the passing records in 2007. So they've got Hernandez and Gronkowski. They brought in Tyler Urban as a rookie. They signed Bo Scaife, Daniel Fells, Jake Ballard, and now they got Visanthe Shenko. So I think that Bill Belichick might be thinking about lining up Tom Brady and 10 tight ends and seeing if he can pull off winning with that A11 lineup. But, that's joking a little bit, but the Patriots are the team that really pushed that two tight end thing last year, and that's why Gronkowski is being touted as a first-round draft pick as a tight end in fantasy circles this year.
And
scary.
Belichick, he says if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing.
Let me ask you, both of you guys have been playing fantasy football for over 20 years. Have you ever seen a tight end go in the first round of a draft before?
Now, I'm a big proponent of taking tight ends early, and early third round is where I've always taken them. And first round for a tight end, that is, I'm having a hard time getting my brain wrapped around that. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, tight ends are definitely a lot stronger, especially on the Patriots. But there's some better quality players out there to take before you grab the tight end in your draft.
I am going to say one more thing though. If you are picking at the turn, you're the 12th pick in your first round. Take Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham at the turn. And if you've got a flex, if you can play them both, they're like a wide receiver anyway. Basically, just give your entire rest of your league the middle finger.
Right, because I guess trying to pick tight ends after that, I mean, you just took the two elite ones out, huh?
Yeah, they're good, but you could really screw up your league. You could have a little fun with that. I'm contemplating that drafting strategy.
All right. Well, and if anyone out there needs any help with your drafting strategy, you got any questions about your draft, where you're picking, or any of the injuries or anything, give us a call. Number 609-573-ESPN. That's 609-573-ESPN. All right, guys, let's get to the PUP list. Adrian Peterson is going to be placed on the PUP list for camp. Kamish, what's going on with that?
Well, listen, Peterson, had the ACL and MCL injuries. This will not affect how many games he plays during the season, but he's obviously going to start out there with these huge injuries they had. And a matter of fact, we're going to talk a little bit later in the show about players to avoid, and I got him on there.
Yeah, and I've got him on the players to target, so we'll have a little fun with ADP.
Absolutely.
All right. Kenny Britt, he starts off camp on the PUP list with knee issues. Professor, you got anything on that?
Well, it's training camp, so you can't really pay attention to the PUP list. They can activate him at any time, but you got to be a little bit more concerned about his off-field antics, and that's really his risk. He could get suspended, which would cost him more time than the injury might.
All right. Well, speaking of off-field antics, let's get into it. We got some bad boys apparently playing in the NFL this year. Marshawn Lynch was arrested with a DUI. Professor?
Oh, I've got bits for this whole arrest report. So you just keep setting them up, and I'm going to keep knocking them out of the park.
You should see the professor sitting here like on the edge of his seat, just waiting for this.
I've been waiting for the arrest report. Marshawn Lynch gets a DUI. This follows up his firearms issue last year. This guy has one carton of cigarettes from being on the ATF's Most Wanted.
All right. Then we got most of the Detroit Lions. Well, let's face it, there are just too many of them to name.
Yeah, we're playing Bad Boys in the background. Bad Boys were the Detroit Pistons. I think you actually have to win something, Lions, before you're allowed to be the Bad Boys.
All right, then we go Dez Bryant. He was charged with a misdemeanor. His mom said she won't press charges.
Yes, that is the ultimate softball setup. If I was paying Matt to set me up on lines, his mom won't press charges would be high on the list. However, the bigger story here is that Michael Irvin said on the television that he was disappointed in Dez Bryant. Michael Irvin did lines of blow off a stripper's badunkadunk, and he is disappointed in Dez Bryant.
Does that make him a bad person?
That's a wake-up call, Dez. Michael Irvin is disappointed in you.
I got to say, yeah, when Irvin tells you that you've gone too far, you might have gone too far. All right, and then we got Justin Blackmon. DUI rookie wide receiver from Jacksonville.
You know what? This is his first offense, so you got to cut him a little. You got to get him a little slack. But when you go to Florida and your last name is Blackmon, they're looking for you. So,
what's the theme this year? It's DUI before camp.
Yeah, it's that's an Abbott and Costello routine when they brought him into the station. Who'd you arrest? Blackmon. No, okay, we know that, but you're a Florida cop. Who'd you arrest?
Nice.
All right. Well, Professor, let's get serious for a moment. I want to. You did a great article this week on our website. It's for everyone out there. It's kickassfantasyfootball.com. You can check it out. It's free. It's a great article where you talked about the coaching changes for this season. Give us a little synopsis there of how you broke that down.
Well, I gave a huge applause line to the New England Patriots. They brought back their offensive coordinator from their record-setting year, and basically, if you don't like the New England Patriots, Bill Belichick hates you because they are already the premier team in the AFC, and they got the offensive coordinator back. They've got apparently all of the tight ends in the league at this point, so they're cornering the market there. If they get Wes Welker happy, this could be another 5,200-yard season for Drew Bledsoe passing, and another year
Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe. Man, I just went in the way back machine. Tom Brady. Woo! So it's early.
For a long time.
He's sitting across from the beer cart now, apparently.
Yeah. So Tom Brady could have another huge year, and it's worrisome. It's somebody who doesn't like the Patriots. It's very worrisome. But then you had a lot of teams that really just shook things up entirely. Greg Schiano takes over down in Tampa Bay. You got to look for a run-based offense in that team turning itself around. It won't be playoff worthy this year. The team that could make themselves playoff worthy, though, with a coaching change, just like the 49ers last year, the St. Louis Rams. They've got a lot of good offensive tools in there. They've got Jeff Fisher, who was the prize of the offseason hires. So a lot of big changes. And you know what Jeff Fisher makes for fantasy?
What's that?
Eddie George, Chris Johnson.
Yeah, makes running backs. Makes
Isaiah Peed.
Isaiah Peed.
He is Steven Jackson's backup, and Steven Jackson's got a lot of miles. If this guy isn't a fantasy pickup in the second half of the season this year, he's probably going to be a guy that's going to be climbing draft boards next year.
Mark that name down. The professor gave it to you, baby.
All right. Well, and again, you can check all this out. It's www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. It's in a very well-written article. Check it out, but bring your coffee with you because it's long. He really breaks it down for you, helps you understand each team and what they're doing.
Yeah, I had to split it into two articles. It was a bit much.
Yeah, well, when he's writing, we can't stop him like we do on the show and say, okay, enough, and move on. All right, and let's face it, we can't talk news and not bring up the biggest news story of the week. That's right, Denver Broncos training camp. If you saw it at all, Peyton Manning, when he was out there practicing, you heard nothing during the training camp except how incredible he looked. I believe he scratched his backside and got a standing ovation for it.
Well, yeah, he had perfect technique on that scratch.
Perfect technique.
They devoted, there's ESPN and NFL, the NFL channel, devoted all day, cameras and crew, to watch him throw the ball in practice.
I have to say, the best has to be. I was watching a bit of that, and they're just doing their walkthroughs. Nobody is hitting Peyton Manning, and one of his walkthroughs they did where it all breaks down and he has to run the ball, and so he's jogging to the side, and he acts like he's going to stiff arm the defensive player and keep running, and everyone stood up and cheered. The day you see Peyton Manning stiff-arming and not sliding, I have to say, and they were like, look at that. Look how incredible he looks out there. Really.
That's a fantasy.
Yes, and I'm a Peyton fan. I mean, I love Peyton, but come on now. Now, realistically, what are we expecting from Peyton this year? Take away all the hype. What do you think about Peyton Manning as a fantasy quarterback this year, Commish?
I think you got to give it a month. I think you got to give him a month to get used to the offense, to get used to a whole new realm. I think they're going to run the ball early, and I think after a good month, you're going to see Peyton Manning become the old Peyton Manning. But there's still timing that you have to get with these receivers. It's like I said, it's a new offense, it's a new coaching he's got to get used to, and he's been out of football for a year. So I think you got to give it a little time. But I think down the stretch, you're going to see this guy put up the numbers of old.
I got to disagree. If he's healthy, and that's the thing that I want to see in the preseason, that he's 100% recovered, I think that he's the guy that has worked all offseason to get his timing down with his receivers. I think that you might see him blow up right out of the gate.
You might, but when he gets hit for the first time, let's see how he gets up. Right now it's all cute. We're all watching him and cheering him on the TV, but once you get hit and you're all padded up and you get hit, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, he doesn't quite have Tim Tebow's physique.
Running ability.
All right, guys. Well, when we come back, we're going to get into our players to target and players to avoid. We also got some special guests that are going to be calling in. You are listening to the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show here on 97.3 ESPN. And welcome back to the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Matt Lowry, and we are here to help bring you to a championship. All right, we got our first special guest of the day for you. That is from Fantasy Judgment, Michael Stein. Hey, Michael, welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you?
Not too bad. Hey, we were talking a bit about all the news going around in the NFL, and I have to say, when we found your site and what you guys do there, I have to say your judgments and your rulings were absolutely phenomenal. You got to tell our listeners exactly what you provide and what you do.
Well, in my pursuit to become the next Roger Goodell, what I do is I resolve all fantasy disputes that happen in leagues, such as trade disputes, commissioners making bad decisions, collusion, scoring discrepancies, draft issues, payouts, standings issues, anything that could happen in your fantasy league that someone has an issue with. What I do is I write a Supreme Court-like legal decision that resolves it.
And so, give me a little background on yourself. How did you come up with this? How do you know how to make a? I have to say, I read it, and yes, it looks just like the Supreme Court decision there. And I also want to say, I'm not happy with our commission. Is that something I can bring to you, and you can resolve it early?
Yeah, Mike. I think we're going to need you here for the show. Could you possibly write a Supreme Court decision on a couple things that happened here?
Absolutely. I don't want to conflict with the FTC or anything, so I don't want to put any hairs there.
Nice.
So basically, I am a lawyer, and I've been playing fantasy since I'm 6 years old. I have a lot of experience with it. And the way Fantasy Judgment came into existence was I had an issue in my own baseball league, where I'm the commissioner, a couple of years ago. I don't know if you guys remember, C.C. Sabathia threw a one-hit shutout, and Ned Yost of the Brewers, he challenged the official scoring.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, so I had Sabathia on my team, and a no-hitter in my league was worth 50 points. And because the result of my game, I would have lost by 30, but they appealed the decision, and they carried over into the next week. So I made the decision to have two concurrent games going, not knowing whether I would win or lose, and we would both play the same opponent. And that way, when the decision was made, I could just knock off one of the games, and no one was prejudiced. So I know I made the right decision, but people had a problem with the fact that I made the decision myself. So I just thought, wow, it would be great if there was some third party that could, do this for us instead of me doing it myself. I did a little research, and I found out there really wasn't anyone doing it. I said, you know what, I could do this. So I just created Fantasy Judgment.
Yeah, I have to say, Michael, I'm in a lot of leagues. I've been the commissioner of a few leagues. I sit next to a guy that we call the commish. He's the commish for a bunch of leagues, and that is something that I've run into a lot as a commissioner is, what do you do when you've got a situation? You might not even be directly involved in it. You might just have an issue where you might affect the standings of the guy that's, one spot behind you in the playoff chase. So
That's
having
exactly
a third
right.
party, is great, an objective reviewer, as it were.
Yeah, because look, as you and anyone who's a commissioner knows, it's a thankless job.
Yeah,
it
You put in
really
a lot
is.
of time, a lot of effort, and you really get nothing out of it. And at the same time, you have your own team, and you're trying to win too. And you, as the commissioner, you have a right to pursue a fantasy championship just like everybody else. But you also have an obligation to keep the best interest of the league going. So
You're right, Mike. I mean, it sounds to me using your site will really lower the ag factor for all the commissioners out there. So I endorse it 1,000%.
Now, let me ask you something, Michael, real quick. With the NFL referees and umpires on strike, are you sympathetically going to be going out with them, or are you going to continue to offer your services?
No, I'm not going to cross the line. I'm still here. I will be the Mike Bush of this generation.
Okay.
I'm staying here. Actually, I indirectly know Ed Hockley, so I can somewhat empathize with him, but Fantasy Judgment will be here to resolve all the issues. And you know what? Even if the NFL calls me during a booth review, I'll even give an opinion on that too.
There we go. You don't work out with Ed Hockley, do you?
No, he can bench press about 200 pounds more than me.
All right. Well, I got to ask. It all sounds great. What does it cost for our listeners if they need to come to you and get your opinion there?
Well, look, in this day and age, we all know 32 million people play fantasy sports, and most people are willing to spend money to play it. And what I charge per case is $15, for one single case. But the best deal I offer, and this makes the most economical sense for all leagues, for $100, you get unlimited services during the season. So if you got a 10-team league, that's just an extra $10 per team, and you could send all your trades, every issue, every question, every discrepancy. You want me to write a constitution for your league, anything and everything for $100 during the whole season.
That's great. You can have attorney Michael A. Stein on retainer to your league for $100 a season. That is fantastic.
That's right.
And then I have to say, how much do I need to send you on the side to make sure you come out in my favor on the cases?
I will go on record and say I accept no bribe.
Yes, this is the NFL, not the NBA.
Exactly. However, I'm a Mets fan, so you can maybe throw a little love my way that way.
There you go. Oh, so you're saying if I got you some tickets, you'd okay that?
My judgment.
So let's not sully the fantasy judge here.
All right, and where can people find you at, Mike?
I'm at fantasyjudgment.com. That's fantasy, and it's spelled Judgment. There's no extra E in judgment.
I'm
on Twitter at Fantasy Judgment, Facebook /Fantasy Judgment. My email address is my name, michael.stein at Fantasy Judgment. You can get me anytime, anywhere. The court is open 24 hours a day. And when you submit a case, as long as you give me enough information, I will have a decision for you within 24 hours.
Wow. That's great stuff. I have to say, we really have to look into that, Commish, because I don't agree with really almost anything you decide.
Hey, Mike, could we offer our subscribers to our website at kickassfantasyfootball.com some kind of special deal for Fantasy Judgment? I want all our subscribers to get something because it's a great service that you offer. Is there anything you can do for us?
Here's what I'm going to do for you guys. Anyone who subscribes to Kick-Ass Fantasy Football is going to be entitled to one free case from Fantasy Judgment.
Wow!
So when you subscribe, not only do you get the great services and the product from Kick-Ass Fantasy Football, but you'll be able to submit one case to the court pro bono, and we will issue the same type of quality decision for you. And that's what we'd love to offer for your customers.
Wow!
So, Professor, that means you and I—that's two right there. We get against the commission.
Yeah. Yeah, the commish is definitely the shadiest character we've got among the three of us here on the show.
Well, Mike, you see how they beat me up?
What we've done with Fantasy Judgment, I've created a body of case law. It's not binding in real courts. I will give that disclaimer, but we have plenty of case law that describes a commissioner's roles and duties, and deals with the shadiness that is perceived about them.
I'm just busting on the commish. He's not shady at all.
Mike, that's absolutely tremendous. We really appreciate that. That's great stuff for all our subscribers at kickassfantasyfootball.com. You get one free judgment from fantasyjudgment.com. That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
All right, and I want to tell everyone again, check out their website. It was great. I've gone through. I've read some of the opinions he's given out on cases. And some of them are great to hear. Other people's arguments. He posts them all on the website so everybody can see exactly how he came to his ruling, and it looks just like a court document. And funny, you get deja vu. You're like, yeah, you know what? That exact same thing. I remember that from last year, and that was from 2 seasons ago. It's really great, Mike.
Oh, thanks. And look, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at the Fantasy Football Fest.
That's right. You're going to be there too, won't you?
Maybe doing some live cases together.
There you go. You can come out see us at the Fantasy Football Fest We're going to be just a couple booths down from Mike. And, we'll get some cases going there live. We're going to be broadcasting live from there, so we'll have Mike on there talking about that, too. Mike, it was great to have you, man. Appreciate you calling in.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. So, Commish, you're on notice. I'm taking your butt to court.
Hey, listen, I'm loving that Fantasy Judgment is going to be along with us for the ride this season because it takes the ag off my shoulders, especially with you guys.
All right. Let's get back to talking about some fantasy football and some players. Let's get back into some player stuff. And I want to remind everyone, if you got any draft questions or any problems at all, give us a call, 609-573-ESPN. That's 609-573-ESPN. All right, let's get into some players to target. These are guys we like and we think you should be going after in your draft. Commish, why don't you lead us off? Who do you got?
Well, how about this, guys? I got running back first. Ryan Matthews, yes. He started both of his first 2 seasons with 5 fumbles. Yes, he had an ankle injury, which caused him to miss 4 games as a rookie. Yes, there are some protection problems that he's gone through in the past, but he's a third-year player, and his first 6 games before the bye week this year are very, very doable to have a huge start to the fantasy season. And guess what? Week 16, sorry to say this, Matt, they play the Panthers. So
Easy now.
So if you're in the Super Bowl and you got him started against the Panthers, it's a beautiful thing, especially with their defense. And yes, he is my new man crush of the year.
Wait, hold on. He's your new man crush?
New man crush.
I think this is you're recycling your black book here. Wasn't Ryan Matthews your man crush of 2010?
Well, listen, I cycle through.
All right, Professor, what do you got for us?
Well, I've got quarterback RG3, Robert Griffin.
Really? You're going to go take a flyer on the rookie, huh?
Don't draft him as your starter. He's not Cam Newton, but he is just as good a runner as Newton. The Redskins staff is completely invested in him. He's got a deep ball, so he's got a chance to explode, and then you can trade him.
Do you mean implode or?
Sorry. I think Shanahan has made a fantasy stud out of Jake Plummer in the past. So RG3 has got a heck of a lot more skills than Jake the Snake. So you can trade him, you can keep him, trade your starter. He is a guy that will give you value later in drafts.
Well, I don't know with the shenanigans over there. I would stay clear of RG3. I would like
that's only the running backs that suffer.
Yeah. And you just said he runs the ball, right?
Oh, he does.
Well, let me tell you, I got a real good one here for you, Professor. How about Trent Richardson? We're talking about rookies. How about Trent Richardson? He will be the backfield for the Browns behind a very strong offensive line. I got him getting 11 touchdowns and over 1,200 yards this season.
So it was Ryan Matthews in 2010, Mark Ingram last year, and Trent Richardson this year. I see a trend.
Great player to target.
Wow, he just called you out there, Commissioner.
Can we get Mike Steinbeck on the phone?
What do I got? I'm going to another quarterback that's getting no respect. How about Alex Smith, the Rodney Dangerfield of fantasy quarterbacks?
Alex Smith. Is he still a quarterback?
Going as a low-end back. He's a quarterback.
Are you talking about the tight end, Alex Smith?
The 13-3 49ers last year.
Wait, the 49ers with the great defense.
He can throw the ball downfield. He's got Frank Gore and Vernon Davis underneath. I think he ends up as a borderline fantasy starter. You can get him really late and have another guy on your roster that has huge value.
Okay, I'm going to dig really deep here, Professor. Matter of fact, I might come up with a name you haven't even heard of yet. How about wide receiver rookie Brian Quick? He was drafted by St. Louis at 6'3", 220 pounds out of Appalachian State. This guy's being compared to T.O. I think he'll have every opportunity to be the go-to guy here, and he's a great pick to target very late in your draft.
Now, is that the good side of T.O. or the bad?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
The thoroughbred side of T.O.
Oh, I got it.
It's not the sit-ups in the driveway, T.O.?
He can do them, too.
I like that pick. That's an interesting guy that not a lot of people have taken a look at. And I think a lot of people are overlooking the St. Louis offense this year. So it'll be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a guy from an offense that nobody should be overlooking, Isaac Redman.
Love it. Great.
Why is Mike Wallace holding out? Because they're installing a run-based offense.
That's right.
Who's the unquestioned starting running back the first 7 weeks of the season for the Steelers? Isaac Redman.
Isaac Redman. Love
You
it.
can get a guy who will be a top 15 running backs for the first 7 weeks of the season in round 6. Crazy talk. Are you worried that Rashard Mendenhall is going to come back and take the starting job if Redman is producing? It's crazy talk. You can get a guy right now. He's going in the 6th round. He will move up probably into the 4th round as the preseason goes on. Steal, absolute steal.
All right, Kamish.
Well, I know I'm not digging too deep with the name here, but I got to go with it. Julio Jones, wide receiver for the Falcons. We know Roddy White's still there, but he's getting up in age. I mean, Julio, I think, ends up being the main ball grabber here, and I expect huge numbers from him this year. A guy you got to target, get him early. He'll make you. It'll help you get to a championship, without a doubt.
I just want to say that Kick-Ass Fantasy Football does not endorse calling players ball grabbers.
Oh, man, what am I going to do with you, Professor? All right, come on. Who do you got, Professor?
I've got a guy, very unheralded, nobody really talks about him. Running back Adrian Peterson.
Really?
Peterson.
Running back Adrian
ACL,
Peterson.
MCL.
Going in the 3rd round because he's going to miss a few weeks of the season early on. So here's the play.
I'm glad we're in the same league.
You're picking in one of the top 3 draft spots. You get your running back in round 1. You get Peterson in round 3 or late in the 2nd round, and you get Isaac Redman in round 5. Redman becomes your ADP insurance. ADP is your Redman insurance in case Rashard Mendenhall does steal the job back. You could have 3 top 10 running backs on your squad with that pick and get them in rounds 1, 3, and 5.
Strong, very strong. I hope that works out for you there, Professor. Listen, last year I gave everyone Jimmy Graham, if you remember, in the preseason. And sticking with the tight end theme, I have a guy to target late in the draft and should put up some decent fantasy numbers. The guy's name? Kobe Fleener. Write it down, Professor. Kobe Fleener. Rookie out of Stanford, drafted by the Colts. This guy is 6'6", 250 pounds, and will be Andrew Luck's favorite target and check down guy. Should get lots of targets, especially in the PPR league.
You know, I got to say that it's not many fantasy experts that would go for the rookie tight end from the getting passes from the rookie quarterback in a new offensive scheme from Indianapolis. So bold, Kamish, bold stuff.
Nice.
Well, my final guy on my players to target is Eric Decker. Eric Decker introduces himself now as saying, "Hi, I'm the guy catching passes from Peyton Manning this year."
PPR gold, Professor.
I was in the top 10 at wide receiver last year before my NFL quarterback was benched for Tim Tebow. So, Demaryius Thomas is the speed guy in Denver. Decker is a crisp route guy. And he is a poor man's Marvin Harrison without the shooting. So,
Nice.
take a look at Eric Decker.
All right, sounds good. There are some guys that should definitely help you with your draft coming up. When we come back, we're going to get into the players to avoid this season. We also got a couple more callers to call in and talk some great fantasy football. You are listening to the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show here on 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back to the Burlington Auto Group Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Matt Lowry, and we are breaking down fantasy football drafts for you. Let's face it. Kamish, again, what's the best day of the year?
Draft day.
What's better than Christmas?
Draft day.
That's right. And it is coming up, so you got to get on and make sure you have it nailed down. Because let's face it, if you don't have a kick-ass draft, Professor, you have to do what the Kamish does constantly. And what's that?
Trade.
That's
all the time, trading.
All right.
Trading is fun.
Hey, but for you guys that are good at fantasy football, you think you're good, you're ready to see how you compare with others. If you're used to winning your fantasy football leagues, well, now put your fantasy football skills to the test with the ultimate test by playing against the rest of the world with Fantasy Football Evolution. We got Stan Russo from Fantasy Football Evolution here, and he's here to explain exactly how this works. Hey, Stan, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
All right. So tell us a bit about Fantasy Football Evolution. How are you different from the people just, hosting a league on your site?
Well, Fantasy Football Evolution works very simply. Generally, we'll use 12-team leagues as an example. You have your team and then 11 of your buddies, and you guys just basically play each other, and if you win that league, you're the best of 12. Well, we finally figured out a way where you can take that model but extend it to the rest of the world. So this is the first fantasy football competition that's worldwide.
Okay.
And what it does is it allows people who are friends all over the world to figure out who's the best without having to play in those small leagues.
Okay, and explain. So how does it work? So how are you figuring out? I start my team. I think I'm pretty good. How am I going to prove I'm the best in the world?
Okay, so basically you would go to our website, and the website is fantasyfootballevolution.com. You would register for a team, and when you register for a team, you can buy as many teams as you like. Each team gets its own separate league. So if I were to buy 3 teams, I would be involved in 3 separate leagues. Every league has your team that you purchase plus 11 computer teams that you draft against to create a 12-team league.
Okay.
Once you maneuver through that league, the first 10 weeks of the season, or what we call Stage 1, if you do well enough in that league, you move on to the next stage of the competition where you start playing against other people in the country who've done well in their leagues. So it's basically a 3-stage process, and you have to advance out of your computer league to get to start playing other people in the country. And the reason why we use computer teams in Stage 1 is we want to put everybody on an equal footing.
Makes sense. So if that other 11 people in mine are a bunch of morons, and meanwhile the professor is in a really good competitive one, well, hard to tell. But if you're all against the computers, hey, it's fair across the board.
So exactly. Our job was to figure out a system that didn't allow for collusion, didn't take into account the intricacies of having a 12-person draft where you normally get 4 strong drafters, 4 mediocre drafters, and 4 weak drafters. This way, everybody's on an equal footing, and who you pick and how they do during the year basically determines how well your team does.
So your draft, your 11 robots that are in the league with you.
Yep.
They're all working off the same draft sheet, and they're working off of it in all of the leagues?
Yes.
Okay.
Once you register and you go to your draft for your specific team, however many teams you register, but using your first team as an example, the 11 computer teams all have what we call draft maps, and those maps are specifically designed for each one of those 11 computer teams to run on a randomizer. So each one of those computer teams, those 11 teams, are drafting according to a pattern, but a randomizing pattern for each one of them. So you're never going to get any one draft that's exactly the same. It's going to keep randomizing, but it's all going to be on an equal footing that everyone has the same ability to use.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So now after we beat our computer teams and we're showing we're the best, what happens? How does the second stage of this work?
Okay, so second stage starts on week 11 of the NFL season. If you go 8-2 in your first 10 weeks against your computer league, you move on automatically to Stage 2. Stage 2 is going to be a 1-week stage where it's just your team against everybody else's team who does well enough. The top 64 scores for that week are going to move on to a March Madness-style 64-team tournament where you start playing head-to-head people, and it's just win in advance.
All right.
That is very cool.
Stan, what kind of money are we talking about for this? What do you charge people for this?
It's a $15 entry fee for your first entry. Your second entry will only cost you $12.50. Your third entry plus additional entries are only $10 each, and we have a $25,000 first place prize.
Wow, $25,000.
And we're really looking to grow this competition.
That's huge. That is huge. $25,000, and it only is going to cost me $15. That's a deal.
Right. And in addition, while we're trying to get the best of the best, we're also trying to teach people about fantasy football. We have a system in place where the computer can auto-draft for you. So as the computer auto-drafts for its 11 computer teams, you can actually click a button, and the computer will auto-draft using those draft maps and the randomizer to draft your team for you. So you can conceivably buy 10 teams, and we have a group package of 10 for $100, so you save a couple bucks, and have the computer draft a couple of teams to get a team randomized for you, or if you're a newbie, you get to learn how to play fantasy football.
So Stan, the commission and Matt would very easily tell you that I do think that I'm the best fantasy football player in the world. So I will be taking bribes from other players to not enter myself in the competition. However, it is great that you have an opportunity to show your stuff against everybody in the world, and there are expert leagues out there. There are other places, but there's not a lot of places where a regular guy can put his skills to the test against experts like the Commission or the rest of the fantasy football world. So I think this is a really neat tool. FantasyFootballEvolution.com. Yes,
FantasyFootballEvolution.com. Also, NextGenFFE.com. They're all going to redirect you to the same site. And we're really just trying to take fantasy football to the next level. Fantasy football itself is fantastic, but since the advent of the Internet, when there was a giant leap forward, nothing has changed. We're ready to change the scope of fantasy football to bring it into the next dimension.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to frame the picture of my check since there's no trophy for this to go up to with my other fantasy trophies.
That's what you need. You need the check and a trophy. I mean, let's face it.
Well, yeah, that's the takeaway from the Commissioners League here. So he's holding on to it right now.
If you win, we'll send you a trophy as well.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for calling in, Stan.
Great. Thank you, Stan.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Good stuff. Again, check them out. You can also find the link on our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. It'll send you right over. It's really a great step if you want to see how you compare to the rest of the world, and chance to win $25,000. Let's face it.
$25,000, man. That's huge for $15.
Yeah. All right. And now let's get into some players that we want you to avoid in the draft. These are guys to stay away from despite their ADPs. What do you got for us, Commish?
I got Andy Dalton of the Bengals. He played very well last season, exceeding expectations. However, this season, there's now plenty of tape on him, guys, and it's still a young team, and I think the sophomore jinx will have its way with him.
The sophomore jinx and strength of schedule. They've got a tougher lineup this year than they did last year, so I like that. I've got quarterback Drew Brees. He's still a fantasy starter, don't get me wrong, but he's going as the number 3 quarterback. That is too much to pay for a guy who's being coached by Joe Vitt now instead of Sean Payton. So his coach is gone for the whole year. He's coming off a career season. That is his peak. You don't buy a guy at the top of the market. So he'd be fine in the 4th round as a solid quarterback. He won't be there, so let someone else take the risk.
Well, you talked about it earlier there, Professor. I got Adrian Peterson, guy to avoid. He's coming off the torn ACL and MCL in the left knee. I'm not sold on him.
He's been running for a couple months, man. He's looking good. But, yeah, we'll see how that one plays out.
Yep, absolutely.
So I've got DeMarco Murray. I loved him last year as a waiver pickup. I hate him as a fantasy starter in 2012. He has the worst run-blocking offensive line in the NFL in front of him.
Wow. How about Ahmad Bradshaw? Yes, Brandon Jacobs is gone, but first-rounder David Wilson is there, and I think may take over the starting role at some point in the season.
That's an interesting thought. I got another guy. We seem to be beating up on the rest of the NFC East here. Roy Helu of the Washington Redskins. I have only one word to say about Redskins running backs, Shanahanigans.
Shanahanigans. You called it, Professor. All right, I got one, and I've mentioned this, I think, every year I've been playing fantasy football. The Madden curse. Megatron, unfortunately, is on the cover of Madden, which is such a sin. I would have paid him extra money not to be on the cover, but he will be hurt. He will not play well. Do not draft this man. I'm sorry.
He's a first-rounder. Sorry, I got to disagree.
A first-rounder that if you take him, you better trade him because he's going to get hurt.
Yeah, so okay. I do believe, 20-year fantasy football veteran, all the wins that you have to your name, you undo an awful lot of that when you bring up the Madden curse.
Yeah, I'm a believer. I've said it every year. I'm a believer. I have a shirt that says I'm a Madden curse believer.
The commission is basically saying ignore stats, ignore numbers of what he should do. You know what? Because his picture is on the cover of a video game, he's got to go.
Don't be the guy that the professor's coming out with a trade. Hey, I got Megatron. He's on the cover of Madden.
I drafted Peyton Hillis and traded him before he was injured last year. So
good call.
Give me some slack there.
Absolutely.
I've got Hakeem Nicks. Yes, He is extremely talented. He had foot surgery in the offseason. That pushes his value down. He's got Victor Cruz in that offense with him, a up-and-coming talent. That pushes his value down. He'll be solid, but he's not worthy of a pick in the first 4 rounds.
Talking about the New York Football Giants, how about a former one, Mario Manningham? He went from a Super Bowl winning quarterback to Alex Smith.
You know, you take,
Professor, you liked Alex Smith,
you take
didn't
a swing at my Adrian Peterson pick. You take a swing at my Alex Smith pick. In the preseason last year, I said one team would be the most improved in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers. And who was the most improved team in the NFL last year? Engineer, 49ers. Producer Scott Ewing is nodding, 2 thumbs up. The San Francisco 49ers. Okay, my last wide receiver to avoid, Dwayne Bowe. Another guy, love his talent. He is on a team, well, it's a run-focused offense. It's a run-focused offense coached by Romeo freaking Cannell. So
you got to stay away. All right, guys. I want to talk a little bit. We only got a few minutes left here, but I do want to get in real quick some ADP issues, because if you go to our website, it's kickassfantasyfootball.com. We have a little tab there that says projections. You can click on it, and you can see what these guys rank every player in every position. And you can even put in your own scoring system, and it'll rank them by your scoring system. But I got to say, I'm also looking at the ADPs, which you can download from our site, and you got a couple of issues there. Professor, you have Phillip Rivers at number 6 on the site, and he's going number 9 out of the quarterbacks on the ADPs.
Come on, you're gonna give me heat for ranking him ahead of who? Tony Romo, Michael Vick, Eli Manning.
You know what? I'm actually going to stick up for the professor here.
Yeah.
I mean,
really?
Rivers.
The ADPs, the world has it wrong, and you guys got it right.
Guess what?
Yes.
He's our loaded wide receiver. They got not only McAfee, they signed Robert Meacham, they got Eddie Royal, and I think the number one guy with targets is going to be Antonio Gates.
It is kind of why they let us be on the radio.
There you go. All right. Okay, good point. Well, let's see if you can defend this one. Kamish.
Yeah.
On our site, the number 4 wide receiver in standard scoring, Brandon Marshall.
That's right, Brandon Marshall.
He's going number 12 on the ADPs.
Well, guess what? He's reunited with Jay Cutler. The guy's a huge talent, always catches a ton of balls. Generally, he likes to shoot for the over 100 catches mark. But this year, he does it with getting touchdowns because he's got the chemistry already there with Jay Cutler. He will be targeted early and often.
And I'm going to stick up for the commission on this one.
Really?
Surprise, surprise.
What is this happy love thing?
It's a love
fest. It rarely happens, but you know what? The Bears' problem in a lot of recent years is they don't have a true stud receiver.
Now they
are
do.
trying to turn, kick returners into them. So
Yeah.
All right.
this is the right guy, the right situation. I think the commission is dead on.
Well, and again, everyone, you can check that out. It's the little projections tab. Just go to our website, kickassfantasyfootball.com. You can put in your scoring system, and it'll calculate every player to your scoring system and tell you what's going on.
So, well, we talked about our picks, our projections, our ADP. It's draft time, fantasy football owners. It's time to get it done, and kickassfantasyfootball.com makes it easy for you.
How do we make it easy?
Well, we've got our projections. We've got cheat sheets that'll generate your draft list for you based on your scoring rules. It's awesome.
What else?
Well, we've got articles all season long. Every Monday you can go in and see my waiver wire article. You can also see
my trade advice.
Trade advice and all kinds of stuff. Everything you need all season long.
How about a free judgment from fantasyjudgment.com?
Yeah, you know what? I think that was a great move there, Kamish. Good stuff with Fantasy Judgment a few minutes ago. But, this website, we give it all to you. We're here to make it easy.
So you know what? If you subscribe today for just $9.95, we'll even throw in a complimentary cruise for 2 to the Bahamas.
Cruise? Okay.
That's right.
Tell me more.
Listen, you'll cruise to a championship right now with kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Okay, cruise for 2 to the Bahamas, 3-day cruise. That is strong, Commish.
All right,
and you're going to be able to hear us here every Sunday at what's our time this year, Commish?
9
a.m.
That's right.
And we also have our Blog Talk radio shows. They are Tuesday, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And in fact, we got one of the hosts of one of the Blog Talk shows, Jen Studer, with us. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How's everyone doing?
Great.
The hostess with the mostest.
That's it. So are you excited to get started? And you get started this week, don't you, Jen?
Yes, I do. This Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, I will be hosting the show with Jumpin' John Provost and the judge, Ray Jaffe. So we're ready. We're ready. I hope you guys are.
All right. So you'll be able to tune into Blog Talk Radio, check it out. We'll be able to call in and ask you guys any questions that they have, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Please feel free to call in, bounce off, your picks with us as we head into the draft, and we will give you the latest updates on injuries and, any questions, feel free to ask because they know everything. They got it all.
Well, I know that John and Ray are going to be happy to have you. They need somebody to keep them on the straight and narrow like Matt keeps the commission. I move in here on the ESPN show.
Hopefully your job will be a little easier than mine, Jen, because it's not easy with these guys.
I'll try my best.
All right. Well, before we let you go, and again, that is Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Well, before we let you go, we got to ask you a fantasy football question. We're going to talk about breakout players. And who is your breakout player this year, Jen? Who do you got for us?
You know what? My breakout player for this year, I would have to say, is Jacob Tamme. Now that we have Eli Manning at the Broncos, and he loves to throw to his tight ends, that it's coming to him, and I just think he's a smart player. He's steady, and I think we can expect a lot out of him.
Well, I think that Tamme is a solid pick. I know the commish is a big fan of Jacob Tamme this year in Denver, so
what do you think?
that's a solid pick. I like the pick. I like the pick a lot.
Solid pick. I mean, it brings back memories of 2010 when we all jumped all over him when Dallas Clark went down. I think he already has the chemistry with Peyton Manning, just like Jen said, and I think that's the right player. That's a great pick.
All right, Professor, who do you got for us? Who's your breakout player?
Well, my breakout player, before I go into it, I'm going to throw a little happy birthday to my daughter, Emily. I should have done that at the top of the show. 14, I know. Give me a break. But should have been out to breakfast with her, told her she'll get it next Sunday.
You got your priorities straight. I got you.
Yes. So, so my breakout player this year is Doug Martin. Breakout fantasy running back in 2012. I mentioned earlier, Greg Schiano takes over down in Tampa Bay, down from Rutgers.
Yeah.
Great coach. Going to start putting in a more run-based offense. Doug Martin is the guy. He's got to compete with LeGarrette Blount. I think he is already taking that role away. He is a pass-catching running back. If you're in a PPR, get him. If you're in a regular league, get him.
All right.
Yeah, that's a great pick, Professor. I really love Doug Martin this year. I'm going to dig a little deep here. I'm going with a rookie. How about Ronnie Hillman, running back for the Denver Broncos? I think he's going to be a great compliment to Willis McGahee, and I think he ends up taking over the starting role. Could be a great breakout player of the year.
You don't think Manning's going to be just throwing the ball all over the place?
No, I really don't. I think the first month, like I said, they're going to run the ball. Look who their coach is, John Fox, who had two great running backs with Carolina. They ran the ball. They're going to utilize that run to keep the pressure off Peyton Manning.
I think that is a great pick.
All right. And I want to remind everyone, again, you're going to be able to check us out here every Sunday, 9 a.m., from 9 to 10. Give us a call with any questions that you have. We're going to be giving away Fantasy Football Fest tickets starting next Sunday. You can also check out our website, kickassfantasyfootball.com, where you can get tickets there. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. Sign up for our newsletter. All of them have free tickets on there. And the biggest thing, check out that projections tab. It will help you with your draft. It'll break it down by your scoring system. You can print it out. It's all great stuff. We also got our Blog Talk radio shows Tuesday, 9 p.m., Wednesday, 9 p.m., and Thursdays at 7 p.m. East. Check it out. It's great stuff. You can find all the links on our website. And go ahead.
It's everything you need to cruise
championship, baby.
In 2012.
I don't think I can say it any better than that. So with that, we'll see you next week, guys.
See you next week.